Hey guys, it's Nickfamus here. I have an exciting Budokai Tenkaichi 4 video today, and that's about the possibility of the original Dragon Ball Z video game characters appearing. I'm referring to characters like Android 21 and Shallot, who first debuted in a video game. So let's get into it. Starting off our list is Android 21, a new character introduced in Dragon Ball FighterZ who very quickly became a fan favorite. She's modeled after Dr. Gero's deceased wife, and is similar in concept to Cell, as she has cells from the Z Fighters, Cell, and even Buu, which makes her true form very reminiscent of a Majin. Android 21 even has the same cravings for sweets as Buu does, which leads to her more villainous side showing. She has a good side and a bad side, and I feel like both could be implemented as different playable versions for her. Of course, they could also include her base scientist form and give her the ability to transform. As cool as it was to see Android 21 in Xenoverse 2, I was disappointed that her Majin form wasn't included, as to me that's her most interesting and iconic part. Honestly, due to her popularity, she's one of the characters on this list I can really see becoming main roster. Of course, if she isn't, she'll be the perfect candidate for DLC, as I imagine lots of fans would love to play as Android 21 in a Budokai Tenkaichi game, myself included. Next up is Mira and Towa. Mira and Towa are the iconic villains of the Xenoverse franchise, appearing first in Dragon Ball Online, becoming playable as DLC in Xenoverse 1, and then main roster for Xenoverse 2. They've also appeared in the Super Dragon Ball Heroes anime, and even in other games like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Mira and Towa have had a pretty big impact on the Dragon Ball games, and most fans who have kept up to date with the video games would be familiar with them no problem. I have a strong feeling we're going to see them in the game in some form, and hell, they could even add Mira's ultimate form as a playable transformation, something even his home games haven't done yet. Fu is the less recognizable Xenoverse villain, not appearing until the later DLC packs. He is the artificial son of Towa and Mira, and is a lot less threatening of a villain, being more mischievous and really just messing with the timelines for his own education and interests. Fu definitely isn't one of my favorite video game characters, but with his unique abilities and strong ties to Mira and Towa, I figured it only made sense to mention him too. Something about his geeky design doesn't exactly scream Dragon Ball Z to me, but that's just my take. If he's included, great. If not, no big loss. Demigra was the original Xenoverse villain, and my personal favorite. He's similar to Zamasu in ways, as he also had a god complex and believed gods and mortals alike are failures. Demigra even goes as far as to try and erase all of time, including himself, to make a new, pure world. He has a vast set of attacks that could be implemented in BT4, and even has multiple transformations which would be badass to finally get to play as. I'm not sure how likely it is to see Demigra, as he is an older villain who hasn't appeared as much, but nonetheless I'd love to see him for sure. The Supreme Kai of Time, Chronoa, is a lady who needs no introduction. Anybody familiar with the Xenoverse games will know who she is right away. Normally, I wouldn't expect her to be a playable character, but in recent years, she became an unlockable playable character in Xenoverse 2, with a very exciting and unique moveset. I'd love to see her inclusion in the game, along with possibly an alternate costume for future Trunks in his Time Patroller getup. If Mira and Towa are included like I suspect, it only makes sense to include Chronoa as well. Bonyu was a very surprising addition to Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, as she was once a member of the Ginyu Force, but left due to her differences of not wanting to pose and wanting to take fighting more seriously. You get to train against a simulation of Bonyu in the game, and they could easily use her attacks in-game as source material. Honestly, I would be really surprised to see her included, as she's a very random and sort of forgettable inclusion among video game characters, but it would be interesting to see her nonetheless. And finally, the last character on my list is Shallot. Shallot's the main protagonist of the hit mobile game Dragon Ball Legends. It would be nice to see some mobile game representation, as Dragon Ball Legends has a very dedicated fan base. Of course, there are other Legends original characters that could be used. I'm just not overly familiar with the story of Legends, as I only got a few chapters in. Shallot is easily the most iconic and recognizable character from the game, so it makes sense to add him over any other. Him being a new Saiyan character with access to multiple Super Saiyan forms makes Shallot a great recipe for a fighter in Tenkaichi 4. Now, on to how plausible is this idea, and could it ever actually happen? Here's my thoughts. Android 21 managed to cross over into Xenoverse and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and she even became canon through the form of Dragon Ball Superhero. While Android 21 herself isn't specifically canon, it's her human counterpart, but still, you see my point. Mira and Towa showed up in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot as well in the form of a boss fight, which was very surprising as all the other content in the game is pretty strict to the source material. Most of the characters on this list have even appeared in the Super Dragon Ball Heroes promotional anime. So I do think it's very probable that Bandai Namco and Toei Animation are aware of the popularity of these original video game characters. And I especially think it would be great to see them included in Budokai Tenkaichi 4. Android 21 especially is a character I see talked about a lot and adored by the fans, so I can absolutely see her making her way as a playable character. And like I mentioned earlier, I even strongly believe Mira and Towa will make their way to the game. I mentioned in my BT4 wishlist video that I would prefer them to save bonus characters for DLC instead of selling fan favorites like Broly or Gogeta. I think video game characters would be a perfect form of DLC content, as they aren't super important to the franchise to be missed from the main roster, but they would definitely be welcome inclusions in the form of post-launch content. That's just my take on it anyway. What do you think about the DBZ video game characters making an appearance? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, this has been Nick from this. See you later.
Let's see how he likes a Kamehameha!